Greetings, superior beings, greetings, supreme being. We are all the human race, our common enemy is death. Welcome on Perfect Society, I'm Ulrich Hoffman, and you are watching the broadcast. Could researcher attacked by bats in BSL-4 facility be patient 0? COVID coronavirus origin. So, what am I going to do in this broadcast? Review the Express Co UK article, and there's also a Metro article, Metro Co UK, and if this is true, then that should be investigated. But I doubt everything. So this is the article. And I'm gonna read this with the text-to-speech engine so I can do other things in the meantime. And then I'm going to give my opinion about it and ask questions. So let's just first read the article. As always, I have to restart the speech engine after starting the Open Broadcaster software, which wasn't streaming, so I had to restart the software as well. In the meantime, we can watch a Rorschach. This is for virtual DJ. They're called shaders, and to get to these shaders you have to right click here on the effect. This is the Hercules skin for virtual DJ. Anyway, here you see shader, and then by clicking this cog you get to the settings. Now I click them away, but like this, and then you can check different shaders, they're called. And sometimes I see beautiful things in it also. Faces of people and works of art, etc. Really cool shader. Anyway, now we can read the article. Sorry for the wait.
Was this coronavirus patient 0? Scientist describes gruesome bat attack at Chinese lab. Coronavirus patient 0 may have been a worker from a high-security pathogen laboratory working with coronavirus-infected bats, Chinese researchers have claimed. By Brian Lenon, published, 1110, Sun, February 16, 2020, updated, 1212, Sun, February 16, 2020. 30 Coronavirus, bank staff disinfect money in China. Play unmute. Current time 012, duration 042. Facebook Twitter share full screen. A research paper released by biologists Alan Lau points to a bloody incident at the Wuhan Center for Disease Control Laboratory, WCDC, less than 1 mile from the disease epicenter at Wuhan Fish Market. Entitled The Possible Origins of 2019 nCoV Coronavirus, the paper said, a researcher described that he was once attacked by bats and the blood of a bat shot on his skin. He knew the extreme danger of the infection, so he quarantined himself for 14 days. Related articles. Britain on the brink, millions to be told stay home if virus spreads. Coronavirus live, China cover-up fears grow in another accident. He quarantined himself again because bats urinated on him. The scientists from the prestigious South China University of Technology in Guangzhou claimed the Wuhan WCDC hosted animals in laboratories for research purposes, including 605 bats captured in nearby provinces. As well as the Wuhan food market, the lab is also located near the Union Hospital, where a group of doctors were among the first to become infected. Promoted story. The paper states, the Chinese horseshoe bats were natural reservoirs for the severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus, SARS-CoV, which caused the SARS outbreak in 2003, a high-security Level 4 biosafety lab, a high-security Level 4 biosafety lab, image, Getty. The mini-virologists conform to a different scenario, based on genetic analysis, that the virus was transmitted by a bat to another mammal between 20-70 years ago. This intermediary animal, not yet identified, then passed it on to its first human host in the city of Wuhan in late November or early December 2019. The Wuhan Institute of Virology, we report the findings of our 5-year surveillance of SARS-CoV in a cave inhabited by multiple species of horseshoe bats in Yunnan Province, China. A paper released by Xinglu Yang of the Wuhan Institute of Virology described, length genome sequences were obtained from 5 patients at the early stage of the outbreak. They are almost identical to each other and share 79.5% sequence identified to SARS-CoV. Furthermore, it was found that 2019 nCoV is 96% identical at the whole genome level to a bat coronavirus. Read now, Coronavirus UK outbreak, scientist warns 400,000 Britons could die. News, a high-security Level 4 biosafety lab, a high-security Level 4 biosafety lab, image, Getty. A Wuhan high-security laboratory where researcher work with infected bats. A Wuhan high-security laboratory where researcher work with infected bats. Image, Getty. Related articles. Coronavirus bombshell, shocking real cause of outbreak. Coronavirus UK, major outbreak in Britain could cripple NHS according to the Beijing News. A research fellow at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, called Xi Zhenglai, said on Saturday evening, "I can promise that not a single person was infected at our institute, including graduate students. We have 0 infection cases." Another scientist from the institute, Chen Guangjiao, added, "The Wuhan Institute of Virology has no infections, and the patient 0 did not come from us." Both Xi and Chen said they weren't aware whether there is indeed a researcher called Wang Yanling at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Don't miss. Coronavirus live. We're staying home. Britons terrified to travel. News, coronavirus fears could cause shutdown of schools, warns BBC reporter. Insight, coronavirus UK, hidden crisis as panic grows over superspreaders. Video. A patient being taken for treatment. A patient being taken for treatment. Image, Getty. But she said this is obviously fake news. A high-security Level 4 biosafety lab, BSL-4, was built in Wuhan in 2017, and Chinese microbiologists celebrated their entrance to the elite cadre empowered to wrestle with the world's greatest biological threats. Before the opening of the lab, George Jiao, director of the Chinese Academy of Sciences Key Laboratory of Pathogenic Microbiology and Immunology in Beijing, said, "It will offer more opportunities for Chinese researchers, and our contribution on the BSL-4 level pathogens will benefit the world." Such labs are often controversial, and there has been an expansion of BSL-4 lab networks in the United States and Europe over the past 15 years, with more than a dozen now in operation or under construction in each region. China's economy is being affected by coronavirus. China's economy is being affected by coronavirus. Image, Getty. The Wuhan lab cost 300 million yuan, $44 million, and to allay safety concerns it was built far above the floodplain and with the capacity to withstand a magnitude 7 earthquake, although the area has no history of strong earthquakes. It has a focus on the control of emerging diseases, storing purified viruses, and acts as a World Health Organization reference laboratory linked to similar labs around the world. These laboratories are essential and at the forefront of research in developing cures to the world's most lethal viruses. The Chinese Academy of Sciences approved the construction of a BSL-4 laboratory in 2003, and the epidemic of SARS, severe acute respiratory syndrome, around the same time lent the project momentum. A woman feeling fatigued. A woman feeling fatigued. Image, Getty. Trending Burkina Faso church attack. 24 people murdered by armed terrorists in horrific shooting. Burkina Faso church attack. 24 people murdered by armed terrorists in horrific shooting. Newborn baby left for dead after being dumped in drain full of red ants. Newborn baby left for dead after being dumped in drain full of red ants. Trump CU slapdown. Tariffs soar after WTO finds EU illegally subsidized plane making Trump's EU slapdown. Tariffs soar after WTO finds EU illegally subsidized plane making. The lab was designed and constructed with French assistance as part of a 2004 cooperative agreement on the prevention and control of emerging infectious diseases. But the complexity of the project, China's lack of experience, difficulty in maintaining funding and long government approval procedures meant that construction wasn't finished until the end of 2014. The lab's first project was to study the BSL-3 pathogen that causes Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever, a deadly tick-borne virus that affects livestock across the world, including in northwest China, and that can jump to people.
Well, interesting article, Express Co UK. Of course, the major question is, if the person was patient 0, the lab researcher that was attacked, then was he sick himself? Did he suffer from the disease? Did he show any symptoms? And is there a reliable test? I wrote down some questions. Did they have the same coronavirus type in the facility? Can anybody verify if that's the real person's name also, if there's a person by that name at the facility? I had only looked at it shortly at this article. Let's see if I can find it. Sciences, pathogens. It's another scientist from the institute, Chen Guanyao, added, the Wuhan Institute of Virology has no infections and the patient 0 did not come from us. Both she and Chen said they weren't aware whether there is indeed a researcher called Huang Yanling at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. I was also wondering, are these people attacked? Is there no, are the bats not killed before they work with these bats basically? Do they need live bats for their experiments? And how does that work? When the bat dies, then the virus dies, perhaps? Or perhaps the opposite is true. In the beginning, it feeds the virus when the bat dies, but I'm not an expert in the field, you know. So if people suffer from any symptoms, then it's best to see a doctor, because it's pretty serious. Anyway, more about possible cures in my previous broadcast. The official allopathic professional chemical dust cancer causing prescription drug cures. They have Calitra and Tamiflu, a combination. And the other possible cure they have is remdesivir. I think that if it's a designer virus and it's part of a population reduction scam to make loads of money from reducing global population, that even this story could also be part of the cover-up basically, and that these drugs are not going to be effective, and it would be a crime if they know that colloidal silver kills the virus, the Wuhan novel coronavirus, and they've renamed it. I think that maybe to cover up the senator who thinks that it could be a bioweapon. I don't know if he's claiming that he's certain about it or not. The article was removed, so that's not available anymore. But they are revising that article, so it doesn't mean that it won't be back, that it's gone forever. And if it is from a lab, then it could very well be designed. So if this was the way it was spread, then that falls into place with the rest of the puzzle to a certain extent. So then the person was infected by either the urine or the blood via the skin, but then the question is, wasn't he wearing a suit? When they work with these bats with viruses, don't they have safety precautions? Isn't it totally impossible, basically? And it's even in the article itself that they call it fake news or something. I'll check. Because I'm a truth teller, conspiracy factist. So I'm not CNN, I think that's clear. And I've covered colloidal silver websites in my previous broadcast, and the scientific reports, for example, about a table that emits silver ions and it kills the SARS coronavirus, for example. So they should test that first, because silver is a natural mineral that your body needs, and chemicals have a synergistic effect with cancer-causing electromagnetic radiation, according to Dr. Cyril Smith. So they are to be avoided, but in case of a potentially deadly disease, then the cure may be better than the disease, basically. Sometimes the cure is worse than the disease, but in general I don't think that's the case. So the term killer vaccines that was used by me in the past, that's just a warning because I'm chemically sensitive. And the point is, if the killer vaccine would be effective, I claim that it cannot be, but if hypothetically it would be effective, then immunized people that had the vaccine cannot be infected by people that choose not to be vaccinated for one reason or another. It can be religious objections, it can be chemical sensitivity, usually it goes hand in hand with electrosensitivity, and millions of people may be suffering from that, and I doubt if that's an officially recognized disease. Also, the unsafety standards should be revised, and I'm totally anti-5G, like so many people. And another thing is that after they rolled out 5G, all of a sudden we see the Wuhan coronavirus pop up in China. And theoretically everything has its own natural frequency. Actually, that's scientifically proven. People are also taught in physics about the natural frequency, eigenfrequent, Dr. Rive's mortal oscillatory rate frequency, possibly the cure of all diseases. We can see these microscope videos on YouTube of the Blavarisma and other organisms imploding when exposed to their eigenfrequency. And there's a way to calculate that natural frequency eigenfrequency for bridges also, etc. So all we need to know is the frequency of the virus, basically, and then we can kill it with sound, with scalar waves, and with plasma light. More about it also in my previous broadcasts. Electroherbalism, so people can Google it. Also use a tone generator and amplifier and put it through a coil or a plasma lamp whatever works best. But she said, that is, she, S-H-I, not S-H-E, she said, this is obviously fake news. So that's the name of a person. Who is he and he is she in Hebrew? Well, what is the argument to claim that it is obviously fake news? Could that be that bats have no chance of attacking lab researcher, lab worker? Anyway, I think if it did happen, then it's important not to cover it up, to take steps so that it cannot happen again. Perhaps they can wear the suit before they get out of bed or whatever. But I would assume that they do that, of course, that they're not gonna handle bats that carry viruses without a suit on in a BSL-4 lab. Then they can become contaminated themselves. I think that would be insane that that's not happening in reality. So it may indeed be fake news, is what I think. Did I read all the questions already? Did they have the same coronavirus type in the facility, the exact same virus? Of course, it mutates every generation, so that's what I've read, that no two generations are the same, and I've covered this more in depth. The mutation of the coronavirus. And I think it may be best to keep calling it 2019 nCoV. Anyway, they've changed it to SARS-CoV-2 or something. SARS and coronavirus are genetically related. SARS genetically related to C virus, coronavirus. So to use C virus is wrong in this respect in relation to this. But okay, SARS is antibody-dependent. Antibody-dependent SARS coronavirus infection is mediated by antibodies against spike proteins. NCBI, NLM, NIH.gov, PubMed. So that's medical pub, basically. Not mutually assured destruction or angry pub, but medical pub. Check the fourth empire.blogspot.com. I can do that in this broadcast, perhaps later on if I remember it. They should check if they all had fish or pork, if it's zoonotic. Or did they all receive a similar vaccine? Perhaps a vaccine that's mostly given to elderly. Could it be the influenza vaccine, perhaps? Because I read a story of somebody claiming that doctors supposedly injected Ebola into patients, and after that it started spreading. But there are different reports about this. Excusez-moi. Oh yeah, colloidal silver heals sick cat of FIP, feline infectious peritonitis. June 10th, 2019, FIP is a progressive and often fatal disease that's caused by a coronavirus. thesilveredge.com. So yeah, they should check if it's the same virus. And the name of the researcher, if there's indeed a researcher by that name working at the facility that can confirm the story of Express Co UK, and I'll read the Metro article after this. Did the BSL-4 worker get sick? Is another thing to check. How reliable are the tests? I did a review about 8 tests, but not all tests. So is there a way to just take a person's blood and then check that for the presence of this virus? Is it also, I think it is also in the bloodstream. It can also be in the bloodstream without the person showing any symptoms. And usually our antibodies and immune system suppress these viruses. Perhaps suppression is not the right word, but we don't become sick. And when people do become sick, then there is a reason, of course. And then we should treat the cause rather than fight the symptoms with chemical, thus cancer-causing prescription drugs. People can look up natural cures. Preventing beats curing, so antiseptics, antiviral tea tree oil, for example, antiviral teas. Echinacea is one plant. Echinacea, Echinacea. Chamomile tea. Eucalyptus, another good ethereal oil for the airways, but it has to be real essential oil, not fake. So these super cheap oils are usually fake, though they claim to be natural, and they are supposedly nature identical, but they're made chemically, they're not natural, they're not from the plants and the trees, etc., like the natural essential oils are. So it takes a load of plants to create a little bottle of oil, that's why it's pretty expensive. And it's online, there are videos of it on YouTube, how to create your own essential oil. So tests are not very reliable. And did the BSL worker get sick? Oh yeah, I was talking about the ages. There was another article I ran into earlier. Let's see if I can find it fast. I can close this. bnonews.com. There are currently 75,136 confirmed cases worldwide, including 2007 fatalities. 1:54 at night in the Netherlands. 19th of February 2020 is the time of this live stream broadcast. And I've been hearing, I have to have tea. Smoking too much. So here we see BNO News, tracking coronavirus map data and timeline. I can put this one, whoa, put it on here. Okay, now I can move myself. Alright. Here the chart basically on bnonews.com. And they've been talking about less cases, but here we saw it spike on 11th February and 12th February, and there's still no update of the, perhaps this is a weekly updated chart or whatever. Does anybody have a better source? I like that Wuflu Live was called Wuflu, now it's COVID-19info.live, but it still redirects. Let's turn this one off for now. Global confirmed cases still going up in here. We also see the spike, big rise on the 12th of February, and the global infection rate 12-13. So they have the same data apparently, and well, this is more interesting because it also shows the international cases and deaths. So this is at 60k on this map, but we're now at a higher number, 75,136. And internationally, 5 deaths, 999 total confirmed cases, official. Japan, 1 death, Hong Kong, 1 death, Taiwan, 1 death, France, 1 death, and Philippines, 1 death. So let's switch back to the bat. Also makes me think of Batman. Ta-na-na-na-na-na-na. What other questions did I have? So is there a reliable way to test patients? Is there a reliable way? If anybody knows, perhaps with a link. Links can be put in the comments and chat without dots in between. And it can be crucial to save lives, to prevent getting injected at gunpoint with killer vaccines that are contaminated with rabies, Ebola, and the HIV/AIDS virus. Mandatory vaccination at gunpoint, plans are in place. And these companies will be legally immune when everybody dies from it after a month of incubation period or so, or something like that. Then the companies are legally immune. Reminds me of how some bankers make money off wars. So the victor pays the debt of the vanquished, and that's why it's lucrative for them. They get their money back anyway. So what can be done to prevent wars in our future? To control factors that control aging in time with this scalar technology that I've also covered, the scalar patterns in my previous broadcasts, possibly a time-traveling neural network. We also see a line going down. Let's save this image. So this data is supplied by B&O News. Let's turn my camera off. Alright. So the second line is the number of suspected cases or not? So this color has to be so if this is suspected cases, green is serious, red is recovered. Number of recovered patients is also going up supposedly, and deaths keeps on steadily increasing. The amount of deaths keep on increasing steadily but slowly. So this spike can also have to do with the way they count. So yeah, this must be suspected cases. So I usually don't talk when I exhale. And it's best never to start smoking. Anyway, people never talk about the health benefits of smoking. And it is an anti-helmintic, and perhaps it also kills certain viruses that may be spread in chemtrails, which are not contrails. I've covered it in previous broadcasts. So in theory, that virus may also have been spread via cancer chemtrails. Chemtrails in America, CIA, Project Cloverleaf, CIA, evergreen aviation planes, and cloud seeding patterns, and no long white lines in the sky before 1998, as we can see on videos and pictures of before the date, before Project Cloverleaf started. Proving that they're not condensation, vapors or trails, but long persistent cancer chemtrails, cloud seeding, mainly cancer causing barium. So I've advised in my broadcast to collect rainwater and to let it be analyzed in a lab, also to wash your hands before touching food, etc. before rubbing in your eye or picking your nose, etc. Not to put your fingers in your mouth when you have not washed your hands, to prevent this virus from spreading. So they are giving good advice to a certain extent, the most basic logical things to do. And it's clear they cannot make money from colloidal silver. But we also see the confirmed cases number going up, and Agenda Free TV and others are talking about the number of cases So I think both the drugs might not work and that they're downplaying cases so that people will cry out for a killer vaccine that may be rushed through, and then they'll roll up their sleeve and without checking the ingredients, etc. They are totally believers of the mainstream media. The MSM professors and doctors are their god, basically. They heal them. They're the healers in their eyes. And I'm not saying that they are not. I think many of them are, and they're saving lives daily. They're just doing their job, and they have protocols, etc. I think that's all true, but it may also be true that the medical cartel may be pushing certain chemicals, cancer-causing prescription drugs, also that get people hooked. Heroin-based derivative drugs, basically. So they're just drug pushers, and they overcharge. People have to have the doctor's prescription to get the nice drugs that make them feel good and produce more and feel awesome. But usually that's not lasting very long. These chemicals, cancer-causing prescription drugs, are killing millions of people yearly. No one has ever died of using cannabis, and it's illegal to block a working cure from the public. Cannabis can also be eaten. Cannabonbons, space tea, wheat tea. Space cake and wheat tea. And cannabonbons, that's one way. It can also be added to salad, just natural weed, not genetically modified. No Frankenweed, just natural bioorganic eco weed is the best. And they've bred these strains naturally without genetically modifying them to super strains that have a lot more THC, which is the active ingredient that kills tumors by blocking vascular endothelial growth factor, a protein needed by tumors to sprout. They cannot sprout without VEGF. So you don't need CBD oil, you need THC. And it just expands people's consciousness. And there are also reports showing that it's good for people's brains. Of course, it can temporarily affect people's short-term memory, their STM. So when you have to do physics, math, then it's not good to smoke cannabis, unless you can use a calculator and stuff, but then still it's not good to smoke before school, but after school, in the weekends perhaps, or to eat cannabis. Not to smoke, but to eat cannabis instead of the cancer-causing killer alcohol, chemical that's cancer-causing illegal drugs, which may be worse. I don't know, but Prince Rogers Nelson is really dead, though he was sleep deprived for 6 days, and it is kind of weird that the day he died, the Niagara Falls were lit purple. But they think that he also died from illegal clones of prescription drugs, basically, that were not true clones, like with the vaping thing going on. But I think they've done it deliberately, and vapes are not real marijuana, they have no real THC, and they can cause popcorn lung. I will never vape, I've never vaped. Keep it away from me. People can go to the other room, or on the balcony, or outside of the Netherlands if they vape. Just because. Okay, so yeah. So I still see this number going up at least till the 12th. And it is already the 19th now, so that's about a week later. So will we see an updated graph? Other than that, I like this graph. It shows the confirmed cases, deaths, recovered, serious and suspected cases. In tens of thousands, so it could have some more lines so that we can more accurately read the map basically. But so yeah, there may be better maps online. And I was also wondering about the age of the people that have died. So when we read this map or this graph, Statista, I've seen that before, they also had the other graphic that I've shown in the broadcasts. Let's see if I can find it. Most contagious diseases. So we can see that 2019 nCoV it was called at that time. I still have to look up what they call it now. I think it's SARS and something. So the virus is now called SARS-CoV-2 with dashes in between the three. So SARS-CoV-2, and it used to be 2019 nCoV. I misspelled used. I wrote use, not used. To be 2019 nCoV, and the disease is now called COVID, coronavirus disease. Easy to remember. And what I've explained it in previous broadcasts, that they really have these high MEMS of DARPA. And I haven't heard anybody about it, of the animal rights activists, etc. Perhaps there are those that do talk about this, that they think it's wrong that these organisms have chips in their body and are remotely controlled that way. And I've also explained that I think it's just to cover up synthetic telepathy that has been around since 1974, the Maleg patent, apparatus to remotely monitor and alter brainwaves. So that's all covered in my previous broadcast. It's no secret, the patents are online. And a patent is not provided unless it's a working device. So I'm not denying the existence of synthetic telepathy, but I don't think anybody is. So let's read on. So they call it SARS-CoV-2 now. It was 2019 nCoV, perhaps to hide all info concerning the bioweapon question. Why didn't they call it SARS-CoV-2 initially? But this specifies more what it is, that the two are genetically related. Sarcophagus. So yeah, I was talking about this map, but I still wanted to look this up, so now we are certain, or at least what was the source of this, SARS-CoV-2, not .2. Alright, new coronavirus 1.4 to 2.5, other people that one infected person will infect. For Ebola, that number is 1.5 to 2.5. Influenza 2 to 3. SARS coronavirus 2 to 5. Yeah, I don't know how these numbers are acquired, basically. How they get to these numbers. When is somebody an official case? Official, confirmed official case. Is it just when somebody shows the symptoms, or do they have to be tested positive? And if that test is only 50% reliable, or it shows more positives to sell more killer vaccines, basically, then are there any mechanisms to prevent that from happening? So also AIDS is a lot more contagious than the new coronavirus, according to the map. Because with Ebola, these tests were also extremely unreliable, and they had a lot of false positives. So I think that they're just doing the same thing over and over to reduce the global population. Based on the lie that the Earth is overpopulated and that we'll run out of resources, etc. Well, if that would happen, for example, with cancer oil, then they'd be forced to use other alternative sources of energy, for example, geothermal energy and sea energy, which is more efficient than wind energy. And if they run out of food, they starve to death, etc. But people that have a population reduction to 500 million in mind, and these people exist, their book quotes are real, and so are the $1 million Georgia Guidestones, then perhaps we've got another thing coming, because these people may be very rich and powerful and willing to spend millions or billions or trillions on this population reduction to accumulate wealth and power for themselves. Especially power is the main thing they're after. And if they do the right thing, then there's nothing wrong with that. You could argue. So I'm convinced power does not always corrupt. People can be just, have these certain rules. Some live by the 10 Commandments. But they may not be in violation of the real codified law. The Constitution is legally binding, and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is not, for as far as I have understood what I've been reading online. Very revealing. I've also gone into the reasons why, but so we see all these diseases are more contagious than the new coronavirus, and the kill rate is just 2 to 2.1%. H1N1 influenza killed like 300,000 people or something, and now the case count, official death toll. I'll reload the page also to see if it's updated. 2007 fatalities, 2009 now at 2:20 at night in the Netherlands. So we have to breathe and just relax, everything's fine. Most people are civilized beings, and not overreact to this. I think they're just fear-mongering to push their killer vaccines. And I've made clear why I call them killer vaccines. Of course, that's an exaggeration, is what many people think, and that's also what I initially thought. But if they have killed people, even if it's only one person, then you could argue it's a killer vaccine. Especially when they know that colloidal silver kills the Ebola virus. Then blocking colloidal silver shipments is a crime. It's tantamount to murder, basically. But I doubt if that really happened, if that's not fake news. So even the DTRA report shows that colloidal silver effectively kills the Ebola virus. So they should first test if colloidal silver isn't a lot more effective and a lot safer than the rush through killer vaccines and oral vaccines and chemicals, cancer-causing prescription drugs that may have genetically modified ingredients, nanotechnology, and be designed to reduce the global population. What guarantees are there that that's not the case, especially if these companies are legally immune? So I think preventing beats curing, and the idea of spreading colloidal silver flyers at airports where people from Ebola-infected countries fly in is a way to prevent it from spreading. That's also in their own benefit, so that we all aren't injected with these killer vaccines at gunpoint. And I say that bluntly, of course. I hope it never happens, that World War III never happens. But theoretically this could be a prelude to World War III. And I think also the quakes and the flooding in Iran was no coincidence, that they're modifying the jet stream. And they have been for a long time. They have been geoengineering. Another thing we don't hear the mainstream media about. There is a mainstream media blackout. So they might not call it geoengineering, it's too scientific. Only they can talk and think about geoengineering. You know. The Metro Co UK article, I am reminding myself, you're rolling a joint here, are you gonna remember? If they want to erase it, and they can erase memory selectively, in theory, then I couldn't remember it even if I had a perfect memory, and normally I can remember everything. So yeah, I should be able to remember the Metro Co UK article. To see if it's the same, they probably get it from the same source, perhaps Reuters or something like that. And then they rewrite it a little bit with a different picture, etc. And there's no problem with that as long as the news is truthful and accurate. But if there's a population reduction agenda behind that, then that can endanger all of our lives. So I don't think that the good news is that it's good news when the population rate in a country goes down. I think that's bad news. And perhaps you could argue the indigenous people should be allowed to at least reach replacement levels, etc. So I'm for regulation of immigration, regulation, to regulate. So that everybody can get health care and we have a good system and a safe environment to live in. Everybody's civilized, everybody can use high-tech technology. It's wonderful sometimes, it can do wonderful things. So it's not a double-edged sword. It's perhaps there's a better way to express this. Like a pipe that can also be used to blow bubbles. Soap bubbles. But yeah, you have to watch out with that stuff, it's dangerous, so only bioorganic eco soap and don't drink it, it's not meant to ingest, etc. So you're not gonna get clean, it's not gonna kill the virus, it may have killed people already that thought, hey, let's drink some bleach or whatever that kills it, so then I should be safe. And then they died from the bleach, of course, they can't drink that. It's toxic, and that's also shown by these labels that we find on these bottles. So I think what I know, and I think to know that I know what I'm talking about to a certain extent. Okie dokie, so why hasn't HIV AIDS been declared a fake public health emergency of international concern like the new coronavirus has? Can anybody answer that question? On worldometers.info we can also read about this stuff. Worldometers. Meters. It doesn't remember it from the previous time, that's weird. Anyway. Statistics of the month. 65,319 seasonal flu deaths this year. Quick facts: every year an estimated 290,000 to 650,000 people die in the world due to complications from seasonal influenza flu viruses. This figure corresponds to 795 to 1,781 deaths per day due to the seasonal flu. Worldometers.info. Reminds me of another article. And it's more scientific, so I hope it's found in the history, otherwise it will take longer to retrieve it, but that's the way I broadcast, how I differ from others. Influenza as a bioweapon on pubmed.gov. Let's put this back on the bed. I think this was online before. Review. Author information. Indexed for Medline. Share on Facebook. Where do I have to click to read this? Let's just search it on Google then. ResearchGate 2003. See if I can find the article somewhere. Health flu bioweapon fears, BBC News also reported about it. Article information. References. The Royal Society of Medicine Journals. Find in PubMed then. So, how can I read the article? Can we read the article überhaupt, or is this full text sources, PubMed Central? Oh, I linked this. Oh, I remember. Okay, yeah. No, I already read this. Okay. I thought it had disappeared now. But I wanted to show that it's a PubMed link, basically. Okay. Especially this part is interesting.
Influenza is usually transmitted by direct contact but can also be transmitted by aerosol, for example on a passenger plane. 11. Indeed, international transmission is increasingly frequent. Notably, aerosol transmission of influenza requires up to 27,000 times fewer variants to induce equivalent disease. 12. Taken together with the fact that influenza virus is readily accessible and may be causing more deaths than previously suspected, the possibility for genetic engineering and aerosol transmission suggests an enormous potential for bioterrorism.
So aerosol transmission of influenza requires up to 27,000 times fewer variants to induce equivalent disease. Human influenza resulting from aerosol inhalation. PubMed ref list. Okay. So it's good to know. So I think most of us are not murderers, most people are civilized, and most of us by far are not murderers, and murderers might be some of the best of us. So if they did their time, etc., then you could argue they are cured, they are not repatriated, not reborn. Whatever, they are righteous, good citizens. Perhaps. So, health, flu, bioweapon, fears, BBC News. Okay, that was my reference to the influenza as a bioweapon. But this chart, I wanted to show this as well. Study elderly most at risk from the coronavirus, COVID-19 fatality rate by age. So we see that 0.2% of the people that died from coronavirus disease were in the age group of 10 to 19. So that means that children also died from it, to keep it clear. This shows the percentage of the people of these age groups that died from the coronavirus disease. So probably elderly might also be vaccinated more. They might think that that's the right thing to do, etc. And I think some vaccines may be effective to a certain extent, but the question is, isn't colloidal silver more effective? Also, wet wound healing is the fastest way to heal wounds. So colloidal silver is excellent for that purpose. Well, one explanation would be that an elderly person has a more fragile body that is more susceptible to this type of virus, apparently, than young people that may have a stronger immune system, etc. But if it is antibody-dependent, then that might be a disadvantage, and they might become infected faster than people with a weak immune system, with fewer antibodies. So I'm not going to assume anything based on this, because of the reason that I just mentioned. So more elderly might die from any disease, also from the common flu and other diseases, and be more susceptible, and that's the same for all diseases basically, in theory. The question is also how antibody dependent is it, if it is antibody dependent. And I've been searching for the answer, so if anybody knows a link, or if they've confirmed whether it's antibody dependent or not, and how they did confirm that, then I'd love to know. I'd also like to see how many cases there are daily, basically. And I've seen a trend that it becomes less viral, less contagious, or they have better measures. But deadlier, more people dying, also more international cases now. But back to this statistic. So yeah, if it's from the vaccine, perhaps it can also be a binary weapon. When we're talking designer viruses, then the combination of the two might be deadly. And then there is the possibility that it's caused by the outroll of the 5G network that many scientists have spoken out against. I've covered it in previous broadcasts as well. And theoretically that can be a virus enhancing frequency, basically. Just theoretically, so this is pure theory. I'm a conspiracy factist, so I indicate when something is a theory and when something is fact. But my theory is based on scientific data and facts, so the idea was that if it's caused by the vaccine, an elderly got the flu shot but children didn't, for some reason. I think it's not just ADHD, also insomnia and many other horrible diseases can be caused by the vaccines and or triggered by them. So the list of epidemics caused by vaccines, I've called that list of pandemics for a reason. I've thought about it, and it's also based on the bigger the lie, the faster it spreads and the more people talk about it and stuff, the more views you get. So coronavirus is not harmless, it still kills about 2% of the people that become officially confirmed cases. So I don't know the criteria for an officially confirmed case, but I was trying to express the point. I have to think here, I'm thinking. Just a moment. Perhaps a minute. Oh yeah, somebody, I've been watching his broadcasts and he thought Perhaps I can check his channel. I've shown it in my previous broadcast. Pretty good news channel. Interesting stuff. With many YouTubers, I think they're not interesting, but he had something interesting to say. This broadcast was pretty interesting.
Oh wait, that's sharing. Perfect.
HMPG, News, Politics and Culture. 1.2k subscribers, 257 views, 17 likes, 0 dislikes according to the YouTube counter. Which perhaps is another thing we shouldn't believe in too much. So that can be hacked and people can buy views, I've read. I don't know if it's true. But anyway, this is the video: fears mount over new coronavirus case in Westerdam cruise ship. Marfoogle News Creators Corner. So he thought that because it mainly affects the elderly, and we see that in the graphic also, that mainly the elderly are dying from this. That is why he thinks it's not an antibody-dependent virus. I don't know if ARDS, acute respiratory distress syndrome, is related. To antibody-dependent viruses. I think I'm not going to check the article. I could check ARDS on Wiki. If there's anything about it in there. Okay. Causes may include sepsis, a life-threatening condition that arises when the body's response to infection causes injury to its tissues and organs. Pancreatitis, condition characterized by inflammation of the pancreas. Trauma, any injury that has the potential to cause prolonged disability or death. Pneumonia, an inflammatory condition of the lung affecting primarily the small air sacs known as alveoli. Well, I have, what helped me was colloidal silver in a vaporizer of Omron, these medical vaporizer things, and cheap $10 vaporizer mist maker does the same thing basically. But it doesn't have a nice inhaler, etc. You could make one with a little hose and inhale the mist, nano silver. What can I say about this on YouTube that's not too controversial? So colloidal silver saved my life. I've been using it for years, and I'm not a blue smurf. I didn't turn into a blue man. No Algeria, because I use clean water, aqua purificata destillata, it's distilled water, and the purest silver. And I use a method that one of the companies that I've talked about in my broadcast also uses, Pure Colloids Co. UK. And I've also tried their silver, it was also very good. Anyway, that's reverse polarity technique to make the silver more potent, more effective. And when people use silver, they also, when they use it internally, they have to use probiotics. And sometimes it's a good idea to take some of these good bacteria that our gut needs to digest food. In other cases, the opposite may be true, so people can always consult with a doctor or physician first. But I think that they are not using silver because they can't make money from it. And that's also a reason they've blocked cannabis, the Rockefeller drug laws. And it's still illegal to block a working cure from the public. Jurisprudence also made this clear. So I'm not a medical doctor. If people have a real problem, they should go to the first aid. If they cough up blood, etc. If they have pain in their lung, then you should do something. I'm not saying stay at home and don't spread it, etc. You must do something about it if you have pain in your lung or you're coughing up blood. Then it's clear there's something wrong. That can be pneumonia, affecting primarily the small air sacs known as alveoli. OBS studio reconnection successful. Hopefully it's still one broadcast. I think they did that break in the broadcast. So I'm against a population reduction. I've attempted to press charges against these people that advocate a population reduction to 500 million with their book quotes, $1 Million Georgia Guidestones, etc. And I recorded the police officer that illegally refused me my right to press charges in this matter. He told me to go to the people, the same people that tortured my teeth out of my mouth and my mother to death with directed energy weapons. So I run into that story when trying to save the maximum number of human lives and create a perfect society. So it's criminal to give these people chemicals, cancer-causing prescription drugs when they know colloidal silver is more effective than antibiotics, for example, and also a lot safer. But they make a lot of money from it, so I bet they still haven't tested colloidal silver on this new coronavirus, and that they're not going to, and they're blocking colloidal silver. They know it's just to reduce the global population. And there are many doctors that use it as well. Doctors have an increased risk of becoming infected when they're treating sick people all day. And of course they need the right biosafety level standards and protocols, etc. to be safe themselves. So with this, I think it's at least BSL-3. And you could argue BSL-4 is better, but perhaps that's overdoing it. So people have to rule out any risk of infection. And they can do that with these suits, airtight suits and compressed air, or air from a hose like we saw in the picture, like this one. I've thought about it. Isn't it easier to have some bottles that are refilled all the time? But when they're working, they don't want to have to change bottles all the time, so this might be more effective if it's not in the way. Bottles are also heavy, so this way they can play Michelin Man. So I think I haven't said anything shocking or anything in violation of the YouTube user policy. So there is the study of the DTRA, Defense Threat Reduction Agency, about Ebola, and these two studies that I've mentioned. And it kills the SARS coronavirus, which is genetically related to the SARS-CoV-2, is the new name of 2019 nCoV. According to the professor in some broadcasts that I've watched. So, I think this is not necessary, that if these people would use colloidal silver, perhaps they would be protected. But I say perhaps because without scientific evidence I'm not going to claim that it also kills this virus, though it most probably does. That's clear. So silver doesn't just kill one-celled organisms and bacteria, which it does very well as well, so that's why we need probiotics. Oh wow, I made a second joint already. Well, I love broadcasting. I think that I am saving lives. Also, there are doctors that use colloidal silver, especially in this day and age of designer viruses. So yeah, using natural remedies and cures of which it's scientifically proven, like with kombu seaweed, that it helps cure people with B-cell lymphoma, for example, probably because there's iodine in it. So that's a good way to prevent becoming sick again, or prevent becoming sick, by adjusting our diet and doing healing things. And I've also covered a new product. It's seaweed, nori seaweed, Cive Crispies trademark. Turmeric, I usually use the turmeric version, and I like the taste of it, and it's very special because it's extremely light, gluten-free, MSG-free, high fiber, toasted nori snack. And I've reviewed that also because there must be a reason the Japanese people have the highest life expectancy, they live longest of the people of all countries on our planet. And that reason may be seaweed. However, the question is also, can this virus spread via the sea, via fish? Is it zoonotic? Any information from you all is appreciated. People can also Skype me via Prologic999 on Skype. So yeah, that was my point. That this doesn't prove that it's antibody dependent or not. Another important question is, how airborne is it? Can it spread via the clouds and rain? Are they collecting rainwater to see if this virus is in it by chance? And can I read the data? Can the people of the Netherlands, for example, do they have a body that checks if this virus is in the rainwater, if there are other things in the rainwater that shouldn't be in there, etc.? Chemically analyze the rainwater. Antibody-dependent enhancement and the antibody-dependent cellular cytotoxicity. Okay. That's what it is. Antibody-dependent cellular cytotoxicity, antibody-dependent cellular cytotoxicity, ADCC, not ACDC. Also referred to as antibody-dependent cell-mediated cytotoxicity, is a mechanism of cell-mediated immune defense whereby an effector cell of the immune system actively lyses is the breaking down of the membrane of a cell, often by viral, enzymic, or osmotic mechanisms that compromise its integrity. A target cell actively lyses a target cell. Mechanism of cell-mediated immune defense. Okay, let's read this one time.
Antibody-dependent cellular cytotoxicity, ADCC, also referred to as antibody-dependent cell-mediated cytotoxicity, is a mechanism of cell-mediated immune defense whereby an effector cell of the immune system actively lyses a target cell, whose membrane surface antigens have been bound by specific antibodies. 1. It is one of the mechanisms through which antibodies, as part of the humoral immune response, can act to limit and contain infection.
In vitro assays. So it can kill cells, basically. Well, I'm checking if antibody-dependent cellular cytotoxicity and ARDS are related, or if there's any info about that. Okay, I have the ARDS article. Acute respiratory distress syndrome is a type of respiratory failure characterized by rapid onset of widespread inflammation in the lungs. The triggering insult to the tissue usually results in an initial release of chemical signals and other inflammatory mediators secreted by local epithelial and endothelial cells. Well, I wonder if there could be a connection. Perhaps there are doctors or others who know about this stuff. So how can we get rid of the virus? So it seems to me like it's something that attacks the unhealthy cancer cells that people want to get rid of, but perhaps it can also be programmed to kill the healthy cells to, for example, cause ARDS. I saw that video of a man bleeding out in a train, basically, with blood on the floor, etc. I sometimes wonder if these videos are real, even. If they would have acted it, if they played it, then why would they do such a thing? Is there somebody paying them, or? I think that it's real, that but okay, without evidence I shouldn't assume anything. So we covered that age group, and then we can go to the Metro article before it's permanently erased from my memory, if I can still find it. Metro, did coronavirus start in Chinese lab where bats attacked scientists and peed on them? Question mark. Previous time I let the thing read the whole article. Perhaps now I will interrupt when I have something to say. I think that would have been better, that I've missed some points because I didn't.
Did coronavirus start in Chinese lab where bats attacked scientists and peed on them? Faye Brown, Monday, February 17, 2020, 10:49 a.m. Share this article via Facebook. Share this article via Twitter. Share this article via Messenger. 89 shares. Chinese scientists have come up with an alternative theory to the origin of coronavirus. Picture, Getty, Reuters. Coronavirus may have started in a Chinese lab where researchers were attacked by disease-ridden bats. Scientists have claimed. A new paper from the Beijing-sponsored South China University of Technology casts doubt on the government's theory that the deadly infection emerged at a seafood market in Wuhan. Scholars Botao and Leja said the city's Center for Disease Control, just 300 yards away from the market, hosted animals in laboratories for research purposes, including 605 bats. Their paper, titled The Possible Origins of 2019 nCoV Coronavirus, claims that bats once attacked a researcher and blood of bat was on his skin. It says he quarantined himself for a total of 28 days after bats also urinated on him. The paper, which only gave maps as evidence of their theory, said that genome sequences from patients with coronavirus were between 89% and 96% identical to the coronavirus originally found in the horseshoe bat. The Disease Control Center is just 300 yards away from the Wuhan seafood market, the Wuhan Huanan wholesale seafood market, where a number of people related to the market fell ill with coronavirus. Picture, AFP. The Chinese government say the Huanan seafood wholesale market was where coronavirus emerged. Picture, AFP. It read, "It is plausible that the virus leaked around and some of them contaminated the initial patients in this epidemic, though solid proofs are needed in future study." Bats are broadly considered to be the original host of the new coronavirus.
I just thought, well, it's possible that I don't get antibody-dependent, what it means, basically. And that's fine. Perhaps some people find it funny, the things I think about it. It's fine. It's just what a common man like me would think about this stuff. I did study at the university for a while, but I'm not the smartest guy in the world, in theory. But I think it means, well, it depends on antibodies. So in this graphic, the tumor cells die. Is it possible that in a designer bioweapon, which they have in these bioweapon labs and facilities, military, is it possible that these kill all cells that are not tumor cells, for example? What is an NK cell? Not a UK cell, but an NK cell. Natural killer cells, also known as NK cells, K cells, and killer cells, are a type of lymphocyte, a white blood cell, and a component of innate immune system. Alright. Natural killer cells. Antibodies bind antigens on the surface of target cells. NK cells, CD16 Fc receptors recognize cell-bound antibodies. So the tentacles flapping around and hey, I recognize an antibody. Cell-bound antibodies. Cross-linking of CD16 triggers degranulation into a lytic synapse. It's like sort of short-circuiting or something like that, perhaps. Everything is energy. Tumor cells die by apoptosis. And that's a good thing. Okay, let's do another graphic. More inspirational. So this is the one we find on Express.co UK with the bat. And then what are these planets behind it basically? What's that supposed to be? The virus perhaps? Or blood cells? Well, it looks like neither. Looks more like little planets, perhaps the moon or something like that. HNO3, H2SO4. Bingo. And then we see a researcher with just a flimsy face mask. Is that even a surgical mask? With a dropper in blue liquid in a P3 dish. He is wearing gloves. And the bat flying, well, practically into the bat could go underneath the window, the half window that's protecting his face from gases. It's probably ventilated, there's suction, so the virus air gets sucked out all the time and filtered and then put out there. So these BSL biosafety level 4 facilities have filtration of the air that goes out as well. So that story is still perhaps impossible. That it would have come from that facility somehow. And perhaps this fits their agenda. If it is a bioweapon but not from China, then they want to cover that up somehow. However, I'm not gonna assume that it is or is not without any evidence, and I hope you all don't either. Especially if you're news, mainstream media, or politicians, etc. Rule out the impossible to get to the truth, to get the truth, to find the truth. Trust no one, nothing is what it seems. So could this have anything to do with Batman also, the Batman movies? They do look kind of scary. So yeah, that would be my first question. Are the people in this facility protected? How could the blood be on his skin? Did he attack the bat also? Did he defend himself? Or was it his own blood? Was he bitten perhaps? So I have my doubts about this story as well. But then it may help to develop a cure when they know its origin. Then they may already have a cure as well. If it's from the lab. Well, I think that's it for this broadcast. And it's totally theory, of course, about these potential cures, official, allopathic, professional cures. What I call chemical dust cancer causing prescription drugs, which sometimes are still better than the disease, also the risk of dying from the disease and other symptoms. But we shouldn't fight the symptoms, only treat the cause first if possible, and otherwise fight the symptoms if there's no other option. And first do no harm, so we have to be sure that what we're doing, what we're going to do, is not causing the patient more harm than good, that we're not making the situation worse. So first think, and also act timely in certain situations when that's required. And I think doctors are doing that usually they're saving lives. So I think they're not part of the population reduction agenda. Perhaps some of them are. There was also a doctor that killed over 200 of his patients. And perhaps it wasn't just about the money. So the people with the remote torture technology that have tortured my teeth out of my mouth, which I'm certain because the scalar beam was partially deflected by a grounded Van de Graaff generator. It's just Tesla's radiant energy, wireless energy, scalar waves. It's all the same thing. So it's not that new. But they could use that instead of cancer cell phone radiation, instead of microwaves. And use healing frequencies. But the idea that this could lead to a world war, be a prelude to a world war, people don't want a 7-year nuclear winter and to die for the earth, etc. Mutually assured destruction. So it would be illogical and a design a virus that becomes more deadly and that in the beginning, when it's passed on, is more viral, contagious and airborne, etc. That could reduce the population more selectively. If it is a designer virus bioweapon, then they themselves have the cure before they put it out there, of course. They've seen Resident Evil, probably, the movies, and there are 6 of them, so some think that that's the real Resident Evil is real, somebody wrote in the chat. Okay, sure, they're gonna believe you after that. But they mean well, probably, perhaps they're very intelligent people and they might know of a certain agenda that they're going to follow that is also to do with the Resident Evil movie, so it can be written by a time-traveling neural network that controls the mind of the movie creator, the script writer, etc. And also the book that I've covered, and Kobe Bryant's Death Predictions, the book by Ingersoll Lockwood, Baron Trump's Marvelous Underground Journey, written in 1893. The people that wrote it may not have known about the future, that it would be part of the future, they just wrote what they thought. But some things cannot be a coincidence, so some people would claim God did it, or Satan perhaps, or some other fictional entity. So we are the most superior beings in the universe, and it's time we start acting like it. So it's good to be critical, to ask questions. And I've already said, if people really have serious symptoms, they have to go to a doctor. In some cases they have to go to first aid immediately. In other cases, they can first try a natural cure, if they have a rash, for example, and if that doesn't work in a day or two, then they can go to the doctor. So it depends on what it is and how serious it is. And when people have appendicitis or they're really in tremendous pain, then usually they go to the hospital anyway. And I think that's also what the people in China should do. And perhaps they can allow people with a medical emergency to drive to the hospital, though I think that might be a bad idea and probably they don't. So more medical aid into these areas is required, perhaps also more tests that are effective so they can determine with certainty whether somebody is infected or not, whether somebody carries the virus. And I think they've just planned rush through killer vaccines, and they're working their way towards that basically. So without a lockdown, without a cure, without a vaccine for this virus, it cannot do anything but spread, basically, is the theory. But how fast it can go, that's another question. Also, if it could have something to do with chemtrails, some people believe that it does. Unnatural amounts of cancer-causing barium in the air, and some norms are transgressed, some safety standards that may be unsafety standards anyway, even if they'd be observed, or kept, or whatever. If these standards are met, that's the word I was looking for. Even when the standards are met, these standards are not good enough, for example, qua cancer cell phone radiation, microwave radiation. That's what I claim, and then they can dispute my claim, etc. But I know I'm right, so I'm open to a debate via Skype, Prologic999. Oh, it also looks a bit like a swine in the background, where you see these two planets, so it's spheres on that orange ball in the background, and then the big planetoid in front. It looks kind of like a pig's head or swine, pork. So that's the deeper level interpretation when you look at the thumbnail from a distance, basically. So is it spread via pigs? Via pigs as well, yeah, that's very well possible, yes. Because they found it in these food samples at the Wuhan market, covered in my previous broadcast. So I do repeat certain things that I think are relevant and on topic in several broadcasts, because I don't have many views, and the truth has to spread, of course, if we don't want to be inoculated to death by the military. So perhaps the plan was to make this a global pandemic, and then when people have been home quarantined a while already, then the nukes can go off, and then people will be without food anyway. But that's just a sick psychotic idea, I think. It makes no sense. A perfect circle is formed by my smoke. Well, not perfect, pretty good. The P3 dish looks very round. So I'm eagerly awaiting the revised article. We can still read that article that they've removed and read about the senator So I think it hasn't been disproven yet that this could be a designer virus, nor has it been proven beyond any reasonable doubt that it is one, for as far as I know. And perhaps I shouldn't go into that in this broadcast. I covered it a little bit in my previous broadcast, so check my channel, Perfect Society, and smash the like button and subscribe and share this or other more important videos on your timeline for a better future. That's what I'm doing it for, not for donations and money and fame. Also to learn about it myself. They say the best way to learn is to teach. And there's another spheroid underneath the bed. Does anybody know what this means? It looks like the moon, but well, perhaps it is supposed to be the moon. They're nocturnal at night, so and the beds go snake biting. I don't know, I'd have to check what they eat, etc. But I think they look pretty scary. And usually that means they can be dangerous, of the animals are capably murderous. Also from Jane's Addiction song. They have some good tricks as well. So yeah, I use music to kill viruses and to take my brainwave to a higher level, basically. And to do that we need 432 Hz tuned and 528 Hz tuned music. .528 Hz is something like that, I think. That was with the mic on. If the piano is not stuttering, then I could play a bit, perhaps. To kill the coronavirus. And not the bad. They may have their function in nature, etc. But if we're naturally scared from animals, then usually they are riskier than animals that are cuddly and nice and that we love. So hopefully that killed it. I'm gonna roll another one. This was the whole broadcast. It's finished. This is the end. So don't keep on listening. It's over. It's the end of the broadcast. Okay. Good, you're still there. So let's see what happens now if I get any genius ideas. Gene is in genius. Genes, scenes. Without genes. Well, my poem. Once upon a time, there was a little virus. A little coronavirus. And it escaped. It may have started in bats. And it may be genetically related to SARS. The SARS coronavirus. It's our secret, I can't talk about it. But I do it anyway here on YouTube. So there are only reasons why vaccination must always remain voluntary. There are no good reasons, not one, to make vaccination mandatory. And I'd love to battle you in a debate. I'm not denying it. I think I'd win. Even if you are a so-called doctor or allopathic professional. So there are people spending millions on reducing the Earth's global population. And what should we be happy about this or sad? Or perhaps it's best to have no opinion. Spending millions on reducing the global population. Yeah, so? So what? What's your problem? What's your problem, mate? You can't say that on YouTube. You can't say what on YouTube? Well, I can't say that because we're on YouTube, so... Blah blah. Multiple personality disorder. Military police department. Just freely associating on cannabis. The broadcast is over. So what's most important? Your life is the most important thing. Second, real love. And third, the real law. I already knew. So the piano sound wasn't good enough. That's another reason I didn't play the piano very long. Drop frames 0. So what caused the mysterious break in the broadcast? Why did it have to reconnect, I wonder? I wasn't abusing the CPU. So there must be a wrong setting. The graphics card updated today. The driver. And I use driver booster for this. And it usually works very well. It also makes system, what do you call it? It's not a backup. System restore point. And I've never been able to use one successfully. Perhaps the Homo Universalis of today would know about technology and the way to access all the data that is relevant. Yet we all can access lots of data via the internet, but the problem is not everything is on the internet, not all answers. For example, how to control aging, or how to prevent coronavirus from becoming a global pandemic. Perhaps it is known to some, but then they also have the problem that everything is splintered up. They can make their own broadcast, but even if they have the cure, perhaps nobody would see it. Especially when there are people that are trying to reduce the global population that don't make money from plants that people can grow at home, unless they tie a doctor's prescription to that plant. For example, heroin and many drugs at the hospitals are heroin-based, heroin-derived pharmaceutical drugs. For example, codeine and morphine. So they are also physically addictive, and cannabis is not. More green tea with what's the other one? Chamomile. But I think I gotta get some sleep. So being proactive, I think, also means not responding to ideas that are not good for us, that are no good. Only focusing on good ideas that we need and that help us to create the perfect society in which we all live happily eternally. And I think real cures for real diseases is part of that, but if you have, for example, a computer virus, then that got out there some way as well. And it's possible that the people that put the computer virus out there also have the computer virus scanner that can remove it, basically. I'm not saying that that's the case, but in some cases it may be true. So that's a problem, reaction, solution. Some call it Hegelian dialectic. And in that first step they transgress the law, they break the law by creating a problem, basically, and their job is to solve problems. So they're doing the opposite of what they're supposed to do. Some people in our government that may be part of secret societies, the same ones Kennedy warned us about, but they may also have good intentions for themselves and their fellow humans. If they could create paradise on Earth and make us all eternal, then perhaps they wouldn't. Perhaps they only would make themselves eternal and let us all die. Perhaps somehow they care less about their fellow humans than most people do. Trump studied at Q University, KEW school. It's a school, not a university, I think. So that can also change a person's outlook on the world. The type of school they go to can influence a person's character, in theory. But now with the internet also there, that's also changing in two ways. But that's for another broadcast. So I gave some tips to prevent this disease from spreading, and people can follow the manual. People can buy colloidal silver at the drugstore, and then it depends on the strength what the maximum dosage is. And of course, when people are not infected, then they should start with an extremely low dose and then see if they have a so-called Herxheimer reaction, and then they can discontinue the treatment, or if it's not too severe, continue the treatment and detoxify their body. And that's all explained online, also by health experts. And I think I would have died if I wouldn't have had tetanus killer colloidal silver at my disposal. Alright. I smell good weed. I still love that smell as well. Though there are other great essential oils. Chamomile. Awesome. I love chamomile. This is Ormanus. I looked it up before. Multicolis or something like that. Wild chamomile. Perhaps from Morocco or whatever. And the other one's from Italy. Roman chamomile. It's even more expensive. But it's very good smell. So that's also good for the airways. Some people steam with chamomile. Honey is also antiseptic. Tea tree oil is antiviral. and it's €13.95 at the health food store. Tea tree oil, 20 milliliters. So most of these are 10 milliliters, and I also have nice peppermint. That's much like munya munya, Mintus tachycetosa type of mint that I really like from Peru. And this has that smell a little bit. And there's another one, another good mint. And it's good to smell these things now. I've explained why they can kill viruses and bacteria, etc., which is necessary for these plants to survive. So they also have underwent that same mutation principle, but it's evolution basically. This is wild eucalyptus, Eucalyptus globulus. This was also pretty inexpensive. This is 10 milliliters by Volatile. And Volatile and Chi are real essential oils. Today I also got cinnamon. And cloves, Syzygium aromaticum, cinnamon is over here, that's my new one. Let's smell that. It's supposed to be eroticizing, aphrodisiac perhaps also. Very nice. And it says in the manual with it that it's made from the bark of the tree. So, I hope you all enjoyed my broadcast. I would find my own broadcast pretty enjoyable to watch, and sometimes I do watch my own broadcasts. And I sometimes give my own broadcast a like if I think it's a good one. And because I'm a targeted individual, I don't give likes, dislikes, barely subscribe, etc. All these clicks are monitored and used. To accumulate wealth and power, or for their own personal agenda. I think most people in the government are still doing what they're supposed to do. Also, there are many webcams and security systems, etc. So these Jesuits and Masons will have a hard time creating a world war, if that's their real goal. Or not. I mean, some people are programmed to follow orders. So I think that situation is more worrisome than the coronavirus at the moment. Perhaps people in countries where people can afford colloidal silver don't have that risk of being vaccinated at gunpoint, etc., with rush through possibly killer vaccines. Some people also claim in the video that they already have the cure ready and waiting on the shelves, etc. So I'm looking at what some people would call fake news, and 181%, so that's not causing it. So I don't know if hackers are doing this, if this is some type of attack, hack attack, DDoS or whatever. Dungy AMR also reported about what did he call it? People that come with the group in the chat to write negative things about sort of trolling, to troll the YouTube broadcaster. I forgot the word he used. He used a certain word. However, I also have to get tea, so I just wanted to end the broadcast, so let's do that now. Thank you all for watching, and remember to do healing things for universal peace. Kiss for single ladies who would like one, and see you all next time. Healing things for universal peace, and try something vegan or vegetarian, and make sure that it's not Roundup ready, but bio-organic eco when it's soy. So I'm not a Roundup ready soy buy. Thank you all for watching. See you next time on Perfect Society. Peace out.